Hi there, and welcome to another interview. I've got the fabulous and amazing Emily Harper with me today, and I'm going to ask Emily the same question I ask absolutely everybody. Hey, Emily, why did you become carnivore?
Hi, Stephen. Thank you for having me on the channel. It's an honor to be here. I became carnivore because I was fed up of not being healthy and being in pain. I had had a car accident a few months earlier and had been doing well with losing weight. And then the car accident set me back. So I had gained a lot of weight. I was in a lot of pain. I was insatiable, whether it was a massive meal of, takeout junk food or a healthy home cooked meal, so to speak, or a big bowl of broccoli with salt. Like nothing could satiate my hunger. And about 10 to 11 months earlier, I had come across a friend. His name's Tony. We had both done first year of some study together. We'd had a gap year. We're on second year registration, and he'd lost a whole lot of weight. And I commented and asked him what he was doing, and he said, "Oh, carnivore." And he told me about it, and he's like, "You should do it." I'm like, "Oh no, women need fruits and vegetables for reproductive. Like this is ridiculous." Um, and so fast forward to the June 15 of 2020, and I'm sitting there and I've had breakfast and snacks already, and I'm just like, this is stupid. My life right now with food and health and memory and everything is just stupid. And so I messaged him and said, "Tell me about this carnivore." And then I jumped on YouTube and I Googled negative consequences of carnivore, dangers of carnivore, etc., while I'm waiting for him to reply. And I came across these videos from Dr. Ken Berry, Callie Hogan, Steak and Butter Girl. They were the three that kept coming up. But then there were also videos from random people who I don't follow anymore. They're not in the carnivore world, and they're talking about like getting the runs and the aches and pains and everything. And I'm listening to their content and their time frame, and I'm like, my sister's done keto, and I'm like, this is keto flu. How is this a negative? And then I'm like, well, I have Crohn's disease and I'm very used to the runs in the bathroom. Like, if this is going to correct the Crohn's disease to get through, even if it was 3 months of transition with the runs, I'm like, big deal. And so at about 11:30 a.m. on June 15, 2020, I, for the first time, just switched cold turkey to carnivore. And that's when my journey started. Um, but to backtrack a little bit, in sort of elementary, primary school age, so up to about sixth grade, I was super active, played basketball. I then transitioned to high school, so seventh grade, and stopped playing basketball. I went to a different school than my team, and so it just kind of changed things. I was also bullied a lot, and so I began comfort eating. And so comfort eating, or even the same amount of calories and no exercise or little to none, and also transitioning into puberty, and I started to put on some weight. And, I got the comments from family like, lick of the lips, straight to the hips, you'll gain an extra donut, you'll be the size of a house. And none of that really had any context for me at that age. But then I changed high schools in ninth grade. And that's when I first was introduced to dieting. My mom, with all of her good intentions and absolutely correctly, was trying to help me to maintain a healthy life. But some of the things we did were weight loss bars, like diet bars, diet smoothies. So I'd have like one for lunch and breakfast, and then, a regular dinner. But they're filled with so much junk, and I was having kind of digestive issues that were sort of present and not present. I stopped tolerating tomato-based sauces, pizza to a degree, certain things, and it was suspected that I had an issue with fructose or fructans, but it didn't come up on any testing. And then I sort of started sneaking stuff back in as time went on, and I gained a lot of weight. I left school in year 10 and started a career as a chef, which I didn't follow through with. So what ended up transpiring was my eating was astronomical. I could get, the Cadbury chocolate bars, which are, pretty much this big, and I could eat that for breakfast in 5 minutes and have 6 or 7 of them in a day, as well as a couple of McDonald's meals, which included the drink and the soft serve, usually a McFlurry or a sundae with the extra toppings. And it's somewhat proud and somewhat embarrassing the amount of food that I could consume and not just, vomit it back up. Was it emotional eating? Absolutely. Was it food addiction? I have no doubt. And I know it was food addiction because of how I interact with food today and the thought processes and how aware I've become with that. At some point during all of this, I did see a dietitian. She diagnosed me with, she said there's a scale of anorexia, so from normal to anorexia. And she diagnosed me with the stage before anorexia, even though I was overweight because of how I interacted with food. I was also diagnosed as a food addict at some point throughout there. Type 2 diabetes. My dad's dad had that. He didn't manage it, died from it in his 50s. My dad now has it. Several times I thought I have had it, but I've been diagnosed as not having it. And I wonder if I would have been considered pre-diabetic, but we're talking, testing 10 to 15 years ago. So with some of these regular everyday doctors, they may not have the insight and skill to have looked at different tests to confirm pre-diabetes. I know that Laura Spath had that experience. So fast forward to, to fill in a slight gap there, I have tried many diets. I've tried Weight Watchers several times. I've done smoothies. I've tried starvation. I have tried to make myself throw up. I could never do it. I have tried laxatives. I've tried body trim, which body trim was actually the most effective. It's heavily protein based, with a cycle day of, it was supposed to be eat one meal of whatever you want, but I made it the whole day. Then the next day you would do protein only. And then the other 5 days you would do protein with low carb, but it was 100 grams of protein at 3 meals and 50 grams of protein at 3 snacks throughout the day. And that was the best. I'd done really well with that, but it wasn't sustainable. It's what I know now. It certainly doesn't give you the full nutrients of what you need. It doesn't keep you satiated, like carnivore does, eating high fat and eating to satiety. So I've tried a number of different things, and it's been a very unpleasant journey. I did try a tablet at one point for weight loss, which my friend had very successfully used, but it quickened my heart rate and landed me in the emergency room. And so I immediately stopped that about 2 days later. But again, her journey has been to use all these quick solutions, lose, I'm talking close to 100 pounds, and then, within a few months, put that on plus more. And reflecting back on this over the last week, that's not the kind of lifestyle that I want to live. I want to do something about my weight and my health and have it stick. So fast forward through to June 2020, when I start Carnivore, and I decided every 30 days I was going to have a blue moon day where I could have some things that weren't carnivore. So I had my friend's 30th and I did that, and that went well. I did another 30 days, and then I had a couple of things. I did another 30 days. So got to day 90, and I think I got like a chocolate bar, some chocolate truffles. And then for dinner, I had, mod pizza, and then I got ice cream afterwards. And that combination of pizza and ice cream is not wise. And so then I went off the rails for a while. And so 2020 into 2021, that was where I was doing the kind of carnivore where it's carnivore, but then you add in ice cream, or a Starbucks drink or this carb or that carb. It was the processed foods. It wasn't like I was eating fruits and vegetables, although I would at times have them. That's the really dangerous, carnivore way of eating. It would be better had I just been eating like whole foods, like fruits and vegetables, but doing those processed sugars and, high fat, moderate protein carnivore, it's not wise to combine them. And I moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma during this time, and that transition was challenging. The living environment was challenging to maintain carnivore, and I did my best, but I added in a whole lot of stuff. And then some life events happened, and those life events caused severe clinical depression, like off the charts, severe clinical anxiety that wasn't quite off the charts, but it was at the very top. And I got diagnosed with those by a doctor in September of 2021. What I didn't get diagnosed with was suicidal ideation. So the reason that didn't occur is I didn't mention it. Because if I had mentioned it, I would have got admitted and forced onto drugs, and I cannot take mental health drugs. They would have probably put me in ICU. I don't know what would have happened after that, but they are bad news for me. I cannot take any of them. That is has been agreed upon by myself, my doctor, a doctor, a physician, a specialist, and my mom, who is a highly qualified nurse in Australian nursing standards. So I didn't mention that to anyone. Fast forward to just before Thanksgiving of 2021, and I kept trying to go carnivore and stay carnivore, but I was really struggling. I started a YouTube channel to try and help myself be accountable for that. And I was listening to Kelly Hogan, and she was interviewing Dr. Georgia Ede. It was the first time I've heard of her. And she said, sugar causes depression and anxiety. Sugar is also carbohydrate. Carbohydrates are fruits and vegetables. And she said for some people, that could be a piece of lettuce. It doesn't have to be a donut. I'm probably using some different examples there than what she did, but that's what she was saying. And I felt in that moment that God said to me, Emily, you can't take mental health drugs. If you're going to go to counseling and you're going to deal with this stuff and address these issues, your medication, so to speak, is going to be to cut out any and all forms of sugar, like stevia, whole foods, processed anything. And so I did that the second day after Thanksgiving. It took me a while to, get fully on the bandwagon. I think I joined Steak and Butter Gang in February, and I had a few ups and downs. And then in May or June, it might have been June 1st, I found I needed a bit more of a smaller community to be a bit more focused to get me going. And so I switched over and I joined Kelly Hogan's coaching. And that was what I needed in that moment. So I was with Kelly from June of 2022 until maybe April of 2023. I needed to take a break financially. And I went from June 1 of 2022, until the middle to late January of 2023. So I went 7.5 months clean carnivore. 3 months of that was without tea, without dairy. And it was fantastic. I did really well. I had a few wobbly moments between January and maybe March, and then did really good April, May into June, occasionally having a red wine or a Bailey's, but very, very rare. And then so during 2023, I was dating someone and I broke up with him the middle of June. And it was quite a messy, painful breakup. I'd also never been through one before, so it was a whole new experience for me. And I emotionally ate and trashed my health until the end of December, so of last year. And I was still trying to do carnivore, but I mean, I'm talking about eating 1 to 2 pints of ice cream in a sitting several days a week, several pizzas, fries. Like, it was usually always processed foods, usually always carbs. I would go through the Starbucks on the way to work and then go through the other one at the other end close to work. And, some days I would have 7 cake pops, and a chocolate croissant and a frappe. Like, it was excessive. So all of those unhealthy habits from my teenage years and 20s had followed me through. And then as it got towards Thanksgiving, I'd put on so much weight, none of my clothes were fitting. And I knew, I'm like, I know how depressed and anxious I am right now. I need to change this. But every time I tried, I don't know, it just wouldn't work. And I couldn't get it to stick. And so fast forward to the end of November, early December, and I thought, I feel so sick. I had been sick several times from the toddler that I nanny, and I wouldn't normally get that. And I knew I needed to do something different. And a couple of weeks before Christmas, I'm like, I'm done. My immune system's trashed. I'm so done with being sick. I'm so done with not wanting to leave the house because I'm so overweight and so inflamed and none of my clothes fit. And I had one pair of jeans, like one pair of jeans and maybe 3 tops and maybe 1 or 2 sweaters. Like, none of it was what I wanted to wear to church or anything. It was just I could wear it to work. So like, I really didn't want to leave the house. And I knew, I'm like, I don't want to go through transition and the hard part of this over Christmas and New Year's. New Year's Eve is my birthday. And so I just didn't want to, I didn't have capacity. My head was not in a good place. And I decided, I'm like, I'm going to eat carnivore as best I can. And if when I'm out with friends at events, Christmas, my birthday, if I eat stuff that isn't carnivore, so be it. And I didn't use that time to be like, well, I'm going to be carnivore on the 1st of January. So I'm going to eat this and eat that. And let's go to this place so I can have it before I start carnivore again. I was like, no. And so by the time we got to December 29, I was at I can't wait for January 1. I'm so ready. I'm so done. New Year's Eve comes around. It's my birthday. I'm driving in the car and I feel this on sort of my upper waist on one side. I feel this kind of pain and itchiness. And it was sort of subconscious. And then as I sort of tried to itch a little bit or whatever, I was like, oh no, I know this. I know what this is. I get home at might have even been 3 a.m. We were in Sacramento. I live in Northern California. And sure enough, I have a look in the mirror and I have shingles. And I'm like, okay, well, I can't fully remember what causes shingles, but I looked it up and it's stress and a compromised immune system or lowered immune system. And that makes sense. In the last 10 years, this is the 4th time I've had shingles and I knew my immune system was compromised. I had the 4th or 5th cold in the space of 3 months from this toddler. And so January 1, I went back to carnivore and I have not looked back. And my mentality is completely different. Depression and anxiety is gone. Scalp psoriasis is gone. So much of an improvement in such a short period of time. It's been fantastic.
Brilliant, Emily. Thank you for sharing that. And obviously some really tough things to talk about.
Yeah.
It's good that you mentioned that you went from a bigger group to Steak and Butter Gang, which is great for many people. I mean, I had a lovely couple of years there as a coach, and then go into that smaller group with Kelly, which is what some people sometimes need, that slightly more sort of personal attention. I'm glad that worked for you. I just want to quickly ask you, because before we started, I said there's always things I like to pick up on. You had that car accident. Before that, did you have any of your conditions? You said you'd had shingles 4 times. Did you have things before the car accident?
Oh, absolutely. So the shingles actually started, now I know what causes shingles as well. It actually started as a side effect of the medication I was on for Crohn's. I was diagnosed with that early 2012 after being told in late 2011, you definitely don't have Crohn's. Crohn's is difficult to diagnose, so the doctor shouldn't have said that. but that's fine. Yeah, I was diagnosed with IBS, so a few of the FODMAPs, so issues with fructans, issues with galacto-oligosaccharides, issues with polyols, so the sugar alcohols, such as sorbitol, isomalt, inositol, anything that ends with ol, as well as isomalt. So anything that's sugar-free will have a sugar alcohol in it, as well as things like watermelon, mushrooms, blackberries. I have like this part of the tip of my finger, my nail size worth of watermelon, and within 5 minutes, I'm in the bathroom with IBS symptoms. And it's awful. It's quite instant. So watermelon is very much out for me. Psoriasis, temporomandibular joint issues, which is my jaw locking up sometimes. I clench my jaw a lot. That has dramatically settled down since re-going carnivore. I have some things written down here. Gastroesophageal reflux disease. That was one that I was diagnosed with. I was on 40 milligrams of pantoprazole. I managed to very painfully wean myself off of that. And I do occasionally get some reflux or heartburn. And I think it's dairy or tea, definitely hot sauce, and occasionally too many electrolytes. But sometimes I don't get it and sometimes I do. So, it's sort of a little bit of a game there. Yeah, I will say as well, I didn't mention this before, but with the depression anxiety, I mentioned suicidal ideation. So the carnivore dealt with the depression and anxiety. And then one day I was in church and the speaker was speaking and they prayed for people with suicidal thoughts. And in that moment, that left. So I really felt like God led me to address what I could address. And then he's like, and you've been faithful, and here is the bit I'm going to do for you in the moment. So I don't deal with that anymore, but I don't put that down to carnivore. I just wanted to be really clear. I'm not dealing with that. I've had some really weird things that have occurred. I don't know if, I don't say they're related to the car accident, but I don't really know when they occurred. So I've had pain in my fingerprints that's like I'm being pricked with needles. Since going carnivore, that's gone. If I would lay in bed on my phone, so like my phone's sort of being held up here, I would get numb hands. That's gone on carnivore. Recently, I had to do a glucose tolerance test and I needed to eat some unprocessed carbs for a couple of days before that. And I got the numbness back in my hands again. So that was just less than 48 hours of eating carbs and that numbness came back. I also get random pain in this knuckle on my hands. And so I would be driving and just resting my hands on the steering wheel would, it was very painful. It was like I had a nail that you'd bang into a wall and pressing my knuckle into that. That's gone. Daily nausea as well. I don't really know what was causing daily nausea, but I would have to take anti-nausea medication some days to be able to sleep. And that's gone. Dry skin. My skin is great. So that's fantastic. Hormones seem to be settling down. I don't really know what the deal was with those. I just knew that they were not good, and they're settling down. Sleep is also great, and also really annoying. Just in the last week to 10 days, I usually get up at 6. My alarm goes off at 6. I think it's ungodly to get up beforehand. And I have been waking up just after 5, if not just before, and I can't get back to sleep. So I'm getting up and I'm going walking. Just get up, get dressed, get out the door and go for a walk before work. And so some days I've walked for half an hour, but now I'm getting up before 6. Some days I'm walking for an hour to an hour and a half.
Fabulous. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If you wake up and you feel refreshed, get out there, get that morning sunlight. I just want to add in, I don't know if you know this, I mean, many years I've been a phlebotomist, and the glucose tolerance test is an awful test. It doesn't do anything because you shouldn't be able to to tolerate 75 grams of carbohydrates in a drink. That's not a good thing. That you don't get that level of sugar in nature. So I understand why you biohacked it, but it is an awful test. One of the things, I think you amazingly covered everything there. I know you had to go to your notes, but one of the things you put in the email to me is you wanted to discuss iron in blood work. I thought the glucose tolerance test is something, because I deal with the blood work. Why did you want to talk about iron in blood work?
Look, iron has been a really interesting journey for me. When I first got my periods, they would be super, super heavy and have all the way through. And like any other kid who has heavy periods, you go to the doctor, they suggest the pill, you go on the pill, and that, lessens the amount that is dumped out of your body. And so that's what I did. When I went on that, though, my iron was quite low. So my iron stores, not the iron that is balanced through food. And so I would need iron infusions. And I had 2 or 3 of those throughout the years. I think one of the more recent ones, I was early 20s. And then I found it very convenient that when I would go on holidays to skip a cycle, so skip those sugar pills and just go straight back in to the regular pills. And then I found it was really nice to skip every other cycle. It was also cheaper because, less purchasing of products. And then I found it really nice to just not have a cycle. So for a year, somewhere between a year or 2, I know it was less than 2 years, I did not allow myself to have a cycle. It was wonderful. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was kind of unintentional at the beginning. And then I was like, oh, well, this is really nice. And then my iron stores were astronomically high. So I got tested for hemochromatosis. Surprisingly, one of my friends has it. So she was talking to me all about it. And then they did the test and I didn't have both markers. So I didn't have hemochromatosis. And the solution was go give blood because that will lower your iron stores. Well, the problem was because I had Crohn's disease and because I was on infliximab, which is an immunosuppressant, people on this side of the globe would probably call it Humira, I couldn't give blood. And so it was like, well, what do I do? And that was, I can't remember what the solution was, but nothing ended up happening and I just lived with this high iron. So since I've been in the US continuously, which has been since August 2019, I have not had blood tests until February. And then I had them actually a month apart, the 2nd and the 28th of February. And my iron stores then, I didn't write it down, but it's within range. I think it's 140 and the max end is apparently 150. And that has never, ever, ever been the case for me. I've either been low needing an infusion or I've been really high and people concerned about hemochromatosis.
Okay. And is your cycle back? Is that something that's happened?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I actually ended up going off the pill because I was only taking it for regulation. And I was like, I feel like this is causing way too much damage for my body. This would have been back in maybe even 2012. It was quite early on. I did try getting an implant on at one point, but that didn't work for me. They took it out about 3 to 4 weeks later. And so then I'm like, well, I just won't use anything. I don't want to use anything that's going to mess with my cycle anymore. At some point, I'm going to want kids and I just don't want to cause any damage to my body and have anything in it that doesn't need to be in there. And it took about 3 to 4 years for not only my cycle to get back to something regular, but also for like pain to settle down and things like that. And there's a whole lot more that could be said for that that's completely unrelated to carnivore, so I won't go into that. But I saw a lot of improvement in my monthly cycle. On carnivore, I've seen that double. So I've seen double the improvement on carnivore. you don't need the pill to regulate your cycle or to minimize the amount of blood loss. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's very personal, but it's good to know because people will ask that question.
They will.
Just a real brief interlude, just to talk about the weight. Can you remember what the heaviest you ever got to, and what is the lightest you became?
Yes, the heaviest I got to was 94 kilos, which is 200 and something pounds, 202 or 212, I think it is, somewhere around that. The lightest I have gotten to, I think, has been 65 kilos. I don't know what that was in or is in pounds, but I was not eating sugar of any kind other than fruits and vegetables, minimal meat. I really couldn't eat a lot. So sometimes my dinner was a zucchini sliced into rounds with some goat's cheese and a bit of tomato paste. And then I was working out at boot camp style routines for at least an hour, 5 to 6 times a week, as well as walking. I was definitely in starvation mode. I was exhausted all the time. Like it was not a good way to lose weight. And that would have been August of 2015. I would have been at my lightest. I was almost into, I was in just in a size 10 Australian in like a cocktail dress fitting size of clothing. I haven't yet got back to that. I was close last year before I went off the rails. I was I was pretty close to that. I was only 1 or 2 kilos away from that.
Right. Okay. And what is your ideal body weight then? Is it that what you want to get to?
No, I think my ideal body weight would be 55 kilos. Sorry to all the Americans. I don't know what that is in pounds. But 55 kilos, it would be a size 6 to 8 Australian. So maybe like a size 8 American clothing size. But again, I don't know if on Carnivore I'll get to that weight, because if I've got a whole lot of muscle, it weighs more than fat. So I could get to that physique, but my weight could still be 60 to 65 quite easily. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Yeah. About 120 pounds, by the way. You just multiply kilograms by 2.2, just so you know.
Thank you.
Right.
It's not my strong point.
Now then, look at this. You've got this history of not being particularly healthy, but you've got your health back. And you are now what's known as a living, or will be, hopefully, a living kidney donor. So I'd love to know a little bit about that, please.
Yeah, that is why I needed to do that glucose test. And I suggested to them a CGM, and they said, look, this is how we need to do it. And so I contacted Kelly, and I'm like, Kelly, what do I do? And she's like, because I know she has all the connections with all the doctors, and she's like, do this. But there were a few other tests I had to do. So she suggested 24 hours. I increased it to just over 48 hours, transitioned in very slowly, and then did 2 days of some low-key carbs with my meals. So I have a friend who is already a kidney recipient. It's been about 10 years. And as what can often happen, her kidney is failing. She's back on dialysis. She's back on the NDK registry, and needs a kidney. And when she was in ICU and she was finding all of this out, I messaged her and said, I'd like to offer you a kidney if you need it. So there are a couple of relatives in her life that are also getting tested. I'm the only friend who's getting tested. I have been progressed to the next stage, which is where I'll go into the hospital for a day, and they'll do a barrage of tests over that day. I still haven't found out if I can donate directly to her or not. They haven't done that test yet. But I am waiting to hear back from them as to whether or not, as to when that day is of testing. Fortunately, that one doesn't require me to change my eating in any way. But I know, like, I'm still considered overweight. They will say to me, we want you to lose some weight. I'll be like, fine, I'm already doing that. By the time I get there, I will have already lost more weight. But I think it's super valuable if you're going to donate a kidney to be in good health. And I think Carnivore is the best way to do that. didn't know any of the medical stuff behind that, but through Dr. Berry, I found Dr. Jason Fung, I think it is, who is quite a prominent nephrologist from Canada. And he is an advocate for this way of eating for reversing kidney disease, I believe it is. So that's encouraging.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't wait to get the results of those tests, because so many people think carnivore is bad for your kidneys, and absolutely it's not. The protein is protective for your kidneys, and all the science says that, and all the real life stories say that. So it'd be interesting to see how that goes. Now, that brings me on to another subject, which we've spoken about off air, which is friends and family. Because you've been brilliant, helping you couldn't be more brilliant, donating a kidney to help a friend. But you have had unhelpful things also said to you by friends and family. And I just wanted you to expand on that as well, because it can be particularly unhelpful if you haven't got friends and family on board when you're eating this way.
Yeah, I've been super fortunate that a lot of my in-person friends, I've come from Australia and now live in Northern America, so it's interesting. But I've been very fortunate to have a lot of in-person friends who maybe they think that my way of eating is crazy, but they've been incredibly supportive. They've never said anything discouraging. They've considered me in finding a place to eat, or they're like, I'll bring a side if I've invited them over for dinner, things like that. And that has been amazing. My ex was super supportive as well, which was where food was concerned was really helpful. But I have some really close people in my life who I look up to, who have been very loving and supportive. They're people that are in person. And I was at a gathering with them, and the topic came up again around food and carnivore and things like that. And this person said to me, I need you to hear, I'm really concerned for you. I'm really concerned for your cholesterol. And, he mentioned a few other different things. And I said, well, look, this is what I know. And I pulled out some photos of Kelly Hogan. She's been doing it for, 15, 18 years or more. And he's like, yeah, no, I don't believe it. This is probably doctored. Like this can't be accurate and whatever. And then there was somebody else there, and both of these people are, old enough to be my parents, if not a little bit older. And this person said when he had walked away, like, you really need to listen to what he says. He loves you. He's an elder. It's worth respecting him. You really need to take on board, what he has said. And my response to that was something like, yeah, I will, but at the same time, I need to do what works for my health. And I just remember feeling really diminished and upset in that moment. That would have been in September, late September, early October of last year. No, actually, I'm sorry. It would have been just before the end of May, so maybe around May 20 of last year. And then the middle of June, I went off the rails, and I remember sitting on the couch feeling so sick. Like I was taking Tylenol and anti-nausea medication, preempting the food I was going to eat so I could eat it and minimize the severity of the impact and how sick and uncomfortable I would feel. And I remember hearing those words in my head, of different people going, this is bad for your cholesterol. This is really going to harm your health. And just being discouraged by them to continue. Surely vegetables are okay. And my response now, especially now I can think more clearly, is say that to someone with a peanut allergy. Tell them peanuts are okay. Say that to an alcoholic, because he was actually an alcoholic. He doesn't touch alcohol at all anymore. And here he is trying to force me to eat something that would send me off the rails. And I've got the evidence of the 6.5 months of last year to show it sends me off the rails. I'm like an alcoholic is with alcohol. That's what I'm like with food that has any degree of sugar in it. I struggle to balance dairy and to moderate dairy. So he was really pushing me to get blood work done. I financially, I couldn't afford it. I've been able to get private health insurance this year, as well as all the kidney testing. So I've had a whole lot of blood tests done. My A1C is 5. My triglycerides at the beginning and then the end of the month were 129 and then 94. My HDL was 35, then 50, and my LDL was 125, then 113. So I knew that my numbers were okay, but I didn't have any evidence of it, and now I do, which is kind of nice to have, to be able to go, look, I don't know how to explain it, but I know this is fine to eat this way. Oh, and now also I have the blood tests here. Have a look.
Yeah. And it's a big deal, because the whole cholesterol hypothesis, which hasn't been proved, and it was originally postulated in the 19th century, and actually 1900. That's when it was first postulated. A Russian researcher thought that maybe cholesterol was a problem, couldn't prove it. And that was only because they did an autopsy on somebody and or a few people, and they found fatty deposits after a heart attack. Now we know the analogy that most people use is that's like blaming a firefighter for a fire. Cholesterol was there to repair. And we know all this, and it's never been proven. There's no causal link that's ever been proven in any study. And it's more and more, when you look at the facts and the figures, that people with higher cholesterol, well, these are the facts. They live longer. Mm-hmm. They have less mortality. And I just want to show you my book, by the way, The Guide to Blood Tests, because this comes up all the time. Okay. So I've done a whole thing. I mean, I've done 15 years as a phlebotomist giving private blood tests, and it's all in the context of low carb, ketogenic and carnivore, but these very things. And it's all referenced. It's all true stories and success. Anyway, it's not. I'm not here to plug my book, but people in this situation, there is information out there. I mean, that's got full of references. Dr. Kevin Stock, his website has the best pages I've ever seen about the LDL cholesterol myth. More references than I've ever seen anywhere. It's absolutely fantastic. So there is loads of things. Your friend there was coming from the right place, but completely ill-informed and absolutely, brainwashed, because high cholesterol is not an issue. It's just not an issue.
Agreed.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, but these people, they don't realise that they're having this impact, and they are well-meaning. It's coming from a place of love, and that's what's difficult, I think. And I'm talking to you, but I'm also for the people watching who might be in this situation. Do remember that they are not being malicious; they are misinformed, correct. And also they have the whole powerful media behind them, and the whole big powerful pharmaceutical advertising behind them. So it's difficult, but you just got to be the example. Exactly what you said. But look at me. Yeah, it doesn't do me any good. And even if all that is true, which isn't, but even if it is, it doesn't work for me. The peanut analogy is brilliant. The alcohol thing is a brilliant thing to say. Just say those things, possibly a bit close to home to an alcoholic to say about the alcohol. But the peanut thing would definitely work. I think it's been a brilliant conversation, actually, and I'm so impressed with what you wanted to talk about. But one thing, as I am also an advanced personal trainer, that really got my interest, and I want to sort of finish with this, is you asked, could we discuss the difference between movement and exercise? So I'd love to have a little look at that.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people hear exercise, and what they think of is Michael Phelps in the pool, Asafa Powell on the track, Kathy Freeman on the track. They think about, I got to get out and I got to run like a lion's chasing me for 16 hours a day. And, especially if you get somebody that's morbidly obese, they're really unhealthy, they go into the doctor says, exercise. That's what comes to their mind. The problem with exercise, even if you're not trying to beat Kathy Freeman on a track or Michael Phelps in the pool, is if you get on a treadmill and run for a bit, or you're like doing something that's really getting your heart rate going, or your body is subconsciously thinking a lion or an axe murderer is chasing you, your cortisol is going super high. Your cortisol is going to prevent you from losing weight or even cause you to put on weight, which if you're exercising, you're usually doing because you want to lose weight. Many people, that's the situation. So you don't want to raise your cortisol. You also want exercise to be sustainable. and you want to enjoy doing it. And you want to be able to do it when you have the time, because in reality, our daily lives these days are quite packed full of everything, and there's not really any time. So I decided to get out and walk. I also personally, I don't like traditional exercise. I like the cartwheels. I like dancing. I like kayaking. I like rollerblading. But if you've got me in a gym running on a treadmill or using the stair climber or something, I couldn't roll my eyes anymore, obviously. It's just, I also want to be outside, not in winter, in summer. Put me in 114 degrees with dry humidity, and I'm the one walking at 1 p.m. for 2 hours. So that's how I approach things. So my advice to people, my coaching clients who I coach, myself, friends, family, anyone watching this is, especially if you have high cortisol, you're highly stressed, or you're trying to lose weight, if you're going to want to add in exercise, call it body movement and just move your body. So go for a walk, do a leisurely stroll. You don't have to walk like a lion's chasing you or try and beat your fastest pace time. Just get the movement in, just get the steps in. It could be, instead of like getting all of the things from the kitchen in your bedroom and laying on the couch for 6 hours watching Netflix, still do that 6 hours, but you get your one drink that's one standard cup. You finish that, you get up and you get another one, you sit back down, and then you get up and then you go to the bathroom, and then you get up and then you go get your lip balm from your bedroom. And then you get up and walk across the room and get your phone on charge instead of on the stand next to you. So every now and again, you're doing this little bit of movement. It could be that random cartwheel. If it's one, it's one. It's still, one is better than none. Go swimming, but don't try and beat Michael Phelps. Just go for a leisurely swim, even if it's laps. Like, don't stress up your cortisol. Keep it low, and it works. I don't fully understand it. I don't have all the scientific, or the numbers or letters beside my name or the degrees or anything. I just know that it does work, and I hear enough people talk about it in the carnivore community to know that I seem to be onto something.
Yeah. I have got an honours degree in health sciences, and I'm an advanced personal trainer. I train people for the Olympics. But it comes down to exactly what you just said, because people say, well, you've got all those qualifications, you know all the science. When's the best time to work out? And I just say, when you can do it.
Yeah.
Because if your life does not fit with a 6 o'clock trip to the gym, you're not going to stick to it anyway, even if I say the best time is 6 o'clock. So that's the first thing. If people are watching this, and hopefully they are in droves, that is such good advice to enjoy it. Pick something you enjoy. And also what you said is very similar to what I say. If someone's starting out and they've got a lot of weight to lose, body fat, and they think they've got to do insane amounts of cardio, I say, look, if getting out of the chair is difficult for you, that is actually an intense exercise for you and at this point. So get out of the chair more. Do that. Simple. As long as it's safe, that you can do that, and then do that more. Start with that. And just take every day as it comes. Just try to do better than you did the day before. And that's all you need to do. Yes, I can do exercise programs like you just said. You can pound it out at the gym. I mean, the treadmill in the gym is about the least exciting thing for most people. Now, I will always get messages when we say that. If it works for you, you're watching, I love the treadmill. I look out the window. Great. Great. That's the whole point. If it works for you, that's great, because some people say to me, the treadmill's good, the monotony is actually good because I can download, I can listen to a podcast and not think about what I'm doing. Fine, if that works for you, that's great. But it would be better to be doing something outdoors if you can. It would be better to be, for your optimal health, to try and do something that involves sort of sunlight and
one more thing back in there.
Yeah, of course you can. Please do.
I didn't start my carnivore journey exercising or restart it this year exercising. I spent about 2 hours a day soaking in a bath bomb. I went to work, I got home, I ate, I laid in the bath, and then I went to bed, and I repeated. And that was the most expensive month or two that I have had. That was an expensive number of bath bombs. But one day I was getting ready for work and I was like, I want to go for a walk. It was, 34 degrees Fahrenheit. It was cold. But I donned my jacket and I stuffed my hands in my pocket and I put on a podcast and I went outside and I had my hood on and I went for that walk. And I did that 3 days in a row. And then I realized I was looking forward to that walk. At some point in your carnivore journey, your body will heal enough that it goes, get me moving. So I would say don't try and force it. If you want to do it, go and do it. At some point, your body is going to tell you, let's go do this.
Yeah, the spontaneous desire to move is very evident. I've been coaching for 5 years in Carnivore, 15 years as a coach in general, and that spontaneous wanting to exercise, I only really saw once I started doing Carnivore coaching 5 years ago.
Yeah,
it just happens. There's no need. Yeah, it's just great. Yeah. So Emily, thank you for that. All your links will be in the description. You don't have to spell them all out, but of course, if you could email the links you want me to put in this description, I will do that for you. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. You too. This has been a real honor.
Thank you so much for listening to my podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Your support means the absolute world to me, and if you're enjoying this show, I've got a small favour to ask you. I'd be incredibly grateful if you would consider becoming a supporter and make a small monthly donation. Your contribution will really help to improve the show. I'll be able to improve the software, maybe put a few more episodes out, and do many things that I'm hoping to do in the future. Do them a lot quicker. So, it's a small monthly contribution. You can cancel at any time, and the link is in the show notes. Thanks very much for listening.